You didn't understand in that moment. You cried. You begged. You asked why that door closed right when you thought it was your answer. Why that person left. Why that job didn't work out. Why everything seemed to fall apart when you had put so much faith, so much hope into it. And in the pain of not understanding, you felt alone. You felt like your prayers weren't being heard. Like God had turned his back on you. Like the universe was against you. You looked at others moving forward while you stood still, and it hurt. It hurt so deeply that some nights you couldn't even find words to pray anymore. Just tears. Just silence. Just that heavy weight in your chest asking over and over, why me? Why this? Why now? But here's what you need to hear today. Here's what your heart needs to understand. That closed door, that person who walked away, that dream that didn't come true the way you planned, it wasn't punishment. It wasn't abandonment. It wasn't God forgetting about you. It was protection. Yes, protection. Even when it felt like rejection. Even when it looked like loss. Even when everyone around you said you were unlucky or that you had failed. What you couldn't see then, what your eyes blinded by tears couldn't recognize, was the hand of God gently pulling you back from something that would have destroyed you later. Think about it for a moment. Really think. How many times in your life did something not work out, and months or years later, you looked back and whispered to yourself, thank God that didn't happen. Thank God I didn't marry that person. Thank God I didn't get that job. Thank God I didn't move to that place. How many times did the pain of yesterday become the gratitude of today? That's because God sees what we cannot see. He knows what we do not know. While we're looking at what's in front of us, desperate for it to work out, He's looking at the whole road ahead. He sees the trap. He sees the heartbreak. He sees the betrayal that was coming. He sees the illness. He sees the loss. He sees everything that would have broken you beyond repair. And because He loves you, because His love is not just beautiful words but real action, He closes that door. He moves that person out of your path. He redirects your steps even when you're kicking and screaming, insisting you know better. You wanted that relationship so badly. You prayed for it. You believed it was your person. But God saw what you couldn't see. He saw the lies that were hidden. He saw the unfaithfulness that was waiting to happen. He saw how that person would have drained your joy, stolen your peace, broken your spirit in ways that would take years to heal from. So He said no. Not because He wanted to hurt you, but because He refused to let you be destroyed. You wanted that job. You needed the money. You needed the opportunity. But God saw the toxic environment. He saw the stress that would have affected your health. He saw the choices you would have been forced to make that would have gone against everything you believed in. He saw how it would have taken you away from what truly matters. So He closed that door. Not because He wanted to watch you struggle, but because He was preparing something better, something that would honor you, something that wouldn't cost you your soul. You wanted to move to that city. Start fresh. New beginning. But God saw what was waiting there. The danger. The wrong people. The path that would have led you so far away from your purpose that finding your way back would have been almost impossible. So He kept you where you were. Not because He wanted to keep you stuck, but because He was protecting the future He had already planned for you. And I know it's hard. I know it hurts. I know that right now, in this very moment, some of you are going through that pain of not understanding. You're in the middle of the closed door. You're watching someone walk away. You're dealing with the disappointment. And it feels unbearable. But please, hear this. Hold on to this. Write this down if you need to. God has never, not once, not ever, stopped something good from reaching you. Never. What He stops is what would harm you. What He redirects is what would break you. What He takes away is what would slowly poison everything beautiful He's been building in your life. His protection doesn't always feel like protection in the moment. Sometimes it feels like loss. Sometimes it feels like punishment. Sometimes it feels like the worst thing that could happen. But that's only because we're human. We see with limited eyes. We feel with wounded hearts. We judge with incomplete information. God sees everything. The beginning and the end. The surface and what's hidden underneath. The present moment and all the moments that are coming. And because He loves you with a love that's deeper than anything you've ever known, He will always choose to protect you, even if it means you'll be angry with Him for a season. Even if it means you'll question Him. Even if it means you'll cry and feel abandoned. He'd rather have you upset with Him temporarily than destroyed permanently. Think of a parent pulling a child away from a busy street. The child doesn't understand. The child just wanted to run after the ball. The child cries and fights against the parent's grip. The child doesn't see the speeding car. Doesn't understand the danger. Only feels the restriction. But the parent isn't being cruel. The parent is being loving. The tighter the grip, the greater the danger that was avoided. That's what God does for us. He grips us tighter when the danger is greater. He pulls us back harder when the destruction ahead is worse. And we cry. We fight. We don't understand. We think He's keeping us from happiness. But He's keeping us from harm. You didn't understand then. But you will. Maybe not today. Maybe not tomorrow. But one day, you'll see it clearly. One day, the pieces will come together. One day, you'll get just enough information, just enough distance, just enough clarity to realize, that was God protecting me. That was His hand covering me. That was His love saving me from myself. And on that day, your tears of pain will become tears of gratitude. Your questions of why will become whispers of thank you. Your anger will melt into awe at how perfectly He was watching over you even when you thought He wasn't paying attention. Some of you right now are nodding. You're remembering something. You're thinking of that moment when it all made sense. When you finally understood why things happened the way they did. When you saw the protection that was hidden in what looked like rejection. Hold on to that. Remember that feeling. Because it's proof. It's evidence. It's confirmation that God's protection is real, even when we can't see it, even when we can't feel it, even when we can't understand it. And if this message is touching your heart right now, if you're feeling something shift inside you, I want to invite you to do something. Subscribe to this channel. Leave a like on this video. Not for me, but so that more people who need to hear these words can find them. So that someone else who's crying tonight, wondering why their prayers aren't being answered, can stumble across this message and find comfort. Your small action of clicking that button could be how God uses you to protect someone else's heart today. Because that's what we're called to do. Protect each other. Encourage each other. Remind each other that God is good even when life is hard. That His plans are perfect even when our circumstances are painful. That He is always working for our good even when it feels like everything is working against us. You didn't understand then. But it was Him protecting you. And what He's protecting you from, you'll probably never fully know. And maybe that's a mercy too. Maybe not knowing the full extent of what could have been is part of His kindness. Maybe being spared the details of the destruction that was avoided is another gift. What matters is this: you're still here. You're still standing. You made it through. And that closed door that broke your heart? It saved your life. That person who left. They took their chaos with them and left room for your peace. That dream that didn't come true? It prevented a nightmare you never saw coming. God's protection is perfect. His timing is perfect. His love is perfect. Even when nothing else feels perfect. Even when your life feels like a mess. Even when you're exhausted from not understanding. Trust Him. Not because it's easy, but because He's proven Himself faithful. Because when you look back honestly at your life, you can see the pattern. You can see the moments when what looked like the worst thing became the doorway to something better. When what felt like an ending was actually a new beginning. When what seemed like punishment was actually preparation. He's protecting you right now. Today. In ways you can't see. From things you don't know about. Trust that. Rest in that. Let that truth comfort you when nothing else makes sense. You didn't understand then. But one day you will. And on that day, you won't just understand. You'll be grateful. You'll be amazed. You'll be overwhelmed by how much He loves you. How carefully He watches over you. How intentionally He guards your heart, your life, your future. Until that day comes, keep trusting. Keep believing. Keep moving forward. Because the same God who protected you from what was behind is preparing something beautiful ahead. And when it arrives, you'll know it was worth the wait. You'll know it was worth the tears. You'll know it was worth every moment of not understanding. Because His protection always leads to His provision. His closed doors always lead to open windows. His no always makes room for a better yes. Hold on. Your understanding is coming. And when it does, it will take your breath away. Let's talk about something that many people struggle with. Something that keeps them awake at night. Something that shakes their faith more than any storm or any trial. Let's talk about the silence of God. You've been there. We all have. That place where you're praying, and it feels like your words are hitting the ceiling and falling back down. Where you're crying out for an answer, for a sign, for anything, and all you hear is silence. Where you're begging for clarity, for direction, for help, and the heavens seem closed. And in that silence, doubt creeps in. Fear whispers lies. Your mind starts creating stories that aren't true. You begin to think, maybe God doesn't care. Maybe I'm not important enough. Maybe I did something wrong and now He's punishing me with His absence. Maybe He's given up on me. But let me tell you something that might change everything. Something that might shift how you see those silent seasons. Something that might bring you peace right now in whatever you're facing. God's silence is not His absence. His silence is not rejection. His silence is not punishment. Sometimes, God is most present in the moments when He seems most distant. Sometimes, He is working hardest when it looks like He's doing nothing. Sometimes, His silence is the loudest answer He could give you. Because here's the truth that we forget when we're desperate for answers. Not every question needs to be answered right now. Not every situation needs immediate clarity. Not every problem needs an instant solution. Some things need time. Some things need to develop in the dark before they can come to light. Some things need to be processed in silence before they can be understood in sound. Think about a seed planted in the ground. For weeks, nothing happens above the surface. It looks dead. It looks forgotten. It looks like nothing is working. But underneath, where eyes cannot see, something powerful is taking place. Roots are growing deep. Strength is being built. Life is preparing to break through. That's what God's silence is often doing in your life. Growing something deep. Building something strong. Preparing something beautiful that isn't ready to be seen yet. And if He answered you too soon, if He showed you too much too fast, if He gave you what you wanted in the moment you wanted it, it would ruin what He's been carefully cultivating in the hidden places of your heart. You've been asking Him why this is taking so long. Why you're still waiting. Why the answer hasn't come. Why the breakthrough hasn't happened. Why you're still in this difficult season. And He's been silent. Not because He doesn't have an answer. But because the answer wouldn't make sense to you yet. Because you're not ready for what He's preparing. Because if He gave it to you now, you wouldn't have the strength to carry it. You wouldn't have the wisdom to steward it. You wouldn't have the character to handle it. So He keeps you in the waiting room. He keeps you in the silence. Not to torture you. Not to test your loyalty. Not to see how much you can endure before you break. But to prepare you. To develop you. To transform you into the person who can receive what He wants to give without it destroying you. Because blessings without character become curses. Opportunities without preparation become disasters. Doors opened too soon become traps we walk into thinking we're walking into freedom. God loves you too much to give you something you're not ready for. He loves you too much to rush your process. He loves you too much to interrupt the work He's doing in you just because you're uncomfortable. And yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it's hard. Yes, there are days when you want to scream at the silence and demand an answer. Days when you're tired of being patient. Days when you're exhausted from trusting. Days when you just want it all to be over and done with. But would you rather have it fast, or would you rather have it right? Would you rather have it now, or would you rather have it last? Would you rather get your way, or would you rather get God's way? Because His way, even though it's longer, even though it's harder, even though it requires more patience than you think you have, always leads to something better than what you could have planned for yourself. His silence is teaching you things you couldn't learn any other way. It's teaching you to trust without seeing, to believe without proof, to hope without guarantees, to stand without understanding. It's teaching you that your faith isn't dependent on His answers but on His character. That your peace isn't based on your circumstances but on His promises. That your security isn't found in what you can control but in who controls everything. These are lessons you can't learn in the good times. You can't learn them when everything is working out. You can't learn them when prayers are being answered immediately and life is comfortable. You learn them in the silence, in the waiting, in the not knowing, in the space between your question and His answer. And everyone who has ever done anything significant for God, everyone who has ever walked in real faith, everyone who has ever been used powerfully, had to go through seasons of silence. Had to endure times when heaven seemed closed and God seemed far away. Moses wandered in the desert for 40 years before God spoke to him from a burning bush. Joseph spent years in slavery and prison before his dream came true. David was anointed king but spent years running for his life before he wore the crown. Jesus Himself spent 40 days in the wilderness, being tempted, being tested, before He began His ministry. The silence was part of the process. The waiting was part of the preparation. The delay was part of the development. And it's the same for you. What you're going through right now, this season where you can't hear Him clearly, where you're not getting the answers you want, where you're feeling alone in your struggle, it's not wasted time. It's not punishment. It's not evidence that you've been forgotten. It's preparation. It's protection. It's Him loving you enough to build something in you that will be strong enough to handle what's coming. Because what's coming is bigger than what you're asking for. What He's planning is better than what you're imagining. What He's preparing is beyond what you can see right now. And if you knew, if you could see it, you'd understand why the silence was necessary. You'd understand why He couldn't just give you a quick answer. You'd understand why every prayer that seemed unanswered was actually being answered in a way that was protecting something more important than your temporary comfort. Your temporary comfort or your eternal purpose. Your immediate relief or your lasting transformation. Your right now or your future. He chose your future. He always chooses your future. And I know some of you are crying right now. I know some of you feel seen. Feel understood. Feel like these words are speaking directly to what you've been carrying alone. And I want you to know, you're not alone. You've never been alone. The silence didn't mean He left. It meant He was working in ways you couldn't hear yet. And if this is bringing you peace, if this is giving you hope, would you share it? Would you subscribe and like this video so others who are struggling in silence can find this message? Because your small action could be the answer to someone else's prayer. It could be the encouragement someone needs to hold on one more day. It could be how God uses you to remind someone else that His silence is not His absence. You know what's beautiful? When you finally get through the season, when you finally understand why things happen the way they did, you won't just be grateful for the answer. You'll be grateful for the silence. You'll be grateful for the waiting. You'll be grateful for every day that felt like He wasn't listening, because you'll realize He was listening so carefully that He refused to interrupt what He was building. The silence wasn't emptiness. It was pregnant with purpose. It was full of plans you couldn't see. It was heavy with blessings being prepared. It was loud with the sound of God working behind the scenes, moving pieces into place, arranging circumstances, preparing people, setting up divine appointments, orchestrating everything for your good. You just couldn't hear it yet. But it was happening. And it's still happening right now. So when you pray tonight, when you cry out tomorrow, when you ask again next week and you don't hear an immediate response, don't panic. Don't assume the worst. Don't think you've been abandoned. Know that the silence is sacred. The silence is purposeful. The silence is protection. The silence is Him saying, I love you too much to give you less than my best, and my best requires more time than you want to give me, but I promise you, when you see it, when you receive it, when you understand it, you'll know it was worth every moment of not knowing. His silence speaks volumes if you have ears to hear it. It says, I'm here. I'm working. I'm protecting. I'm preparing. I haven't forgotten you. I haven't abandoned you. I'm just loving you enough to do this right instead of doing it fast. Trust the silence. Trust the process. Trust the God who knows exactly what He's doing even when you have no idea what's happening. Because one day, the silence will break. The answer will come. The understanding will flood your heart. And you'll fall to your knees in gratitude, not just for what He gave you, but for what He protected you from while you were waiting. The silence was never empty. It was always full of His presence, His protection, His preparation, and His perfect love for you. There comes a moment. A sacred moment. A moment that changes everything. When suddenly, like clouds parting after a storm, you see it. You understand. The pieces that made no sense scattered across the floor of your life suddenly come together into a picture so beautiful it takes your breath away. And in that moment, you don't just understand what happened. You understand who was behind it all. You see His hand in every closed door. His wisdom in every delay. His love in every disappointment. His protection in every person who walked away. His purpose in every pain. That moment is coming for you. If it hasn't arrived yet, hold on, because it's on its way. And when it comes, everything will shift. Your perspective will change. Your faith will deepen. Your trust will become unshakable. Because you'll have proof, living proof, that God's way was better than yours. That His timing was perfect even when it felt impossibly slow. That His no was mercy even when it felt like cruelty. Some of you already know what I'm talking about. You've had that moment. You remember the day when it all clicked. When you finally understood why that relationship ended. When you discovered what that job you didn't get would have cost you. When you learned what that move you wanted to make would have led to. When you clearly saw, the disaster you were running toward and how God's hand stopped you just in time. And in that moment of realization, you probably cried different tears. Not tears of pain, but tears of gratitude. Not tears of confusion, but tears of wonder. Not tears of feeling abandoned, but tears of feeling overwhelmingly loved. Because that's what protection feels like when you finally recognize it. It feels like being loved so deeply that someone was willing to let you be angry with them temporarily to save you permanently. It feels like being valued so highly that someone refused to let you settle for less than you deserved even when you were begging for scraps. It feels like being seen so completely that someone knew what you needed better than you knew yourself. That's God's love. Not the pretty, comfortable love we sing about in songs. But the real, active, protective love that makes hard decisions for our good. The love that closes doors we're trying to force open. The love that removes people we're trying to hold on to. The love that disrupts plans we're trying to control. And here's what you need to understand as you move forward from today. As you walk out of this moment and back into your life with all its questions and uncertainties. As you face whatever situation you're in right now that doesn't make sense, God is protecting you today. Right now. This very moment. In ways you cannot see. From things you don't know about. through decisions that will confuse you, through circumstances that will frustrate you, through delays that will test you. He's protecting you. And one day, maybe soon, maybe years from now, you'll look back and you'll see it. You'll see how that job you're upset about not getting would have destroyed your health. You'll see how that person you're heartbroken over leaving would have destroyed your peace. You'll see how that opportunity you're disappointed about missing would have destroyed your purpose. You'll see how every closed door was protecting an open door you couldn't see yet. How every ending was making room for a better beginning. How every loss was preventing a greater loss. How every disappointment was an appointment with something greater disguised as something painful. But you don't have to wait until that day to trust him. You can choose to trust him now. Today. In the middle of not understanding. In the middle of the pain. In the middle of the confusion. You can say, God, I don't understand this. I don't like this. This hurts. But I trust you. I trust that you see what I cannot see. I trust that you know what I do not know. I trust that you love me too much to let me have anything that would harm me. I trust your protection even when it feels like rejection. That kind of trust, that's the faith that moves God's heart. That's the faith that unlocks blessings. That's the faith that transforms waiting into worship and pain into purpose. Because faith isn't believing God will do what you want. Faith is believing God will do what's right even when it's not what you want. Faith isn't trusting God when you understand. Faith is trusting God especially when you don't understand. And listen, I know some of you are tired. Tired of trusting. Tired of waiting. Tired of being strong. Tired of hearing that it's all working for your good when it feels like everything is working against you. I know you're exhausted from holding on. From believing. From hoping. But don't give up now. Not when you're this close. Not when the breakthrough is right around the corner. Not when the understanding is about to flood your heart. Not when the blessing is about to arrive. Because here's what happens to people who quit right before the miracle. They spend the rest of their lives wondering, what if? What if I had held on one more day? What if I had trusted one more time? What if I had believed just a little bit longer? Don't let that be your story. Don't let impatience rob you of what patience would have produced. Don't let frustration steal what faithfulness would have secured. Don't let today's pain blind you to tomorrow's purpose. God is working. Even when you can't see it. Even when you can't feel it. Even when everything around you suggests otherwise. He's working. And what he's working on is so good, so perfect, so exactly what you need, that when you finally receive it, you'll understand why it took so long. You'll understand why the other things had to be removed. You'll understand why the waiting was necessary. You'll understand that it was all protection, all preparation, all part of a plan so beautiful that your human mind couldn't have designed it, so perfect that your limited vision couldn't have imagined it, so specifically tailored to you that nobody else's story could have produced it. This is your story, your journey, your testimony being written in real time. And yes, right now you're in the chapter that's hard to read. The chapter where the main character is struggling. Where nothing makes sense. Where it looks like everything is falling apart. But keep reading. Don't close the book. Because the next chapter is coming. And in that chapter, you'll see why this chapter had to happen. You'll see how this pain prepared you for that purpose. You'll see how this test positioned you for that testimony. You'll see how this breaking was actually making you into someone stronger, wiser, more compassionate, more dependent on God than you ever were before. And that person, the one you're becoming through this struggle, that's who gets to walk into what God has been preparing. The old you couldn't have handled it. The unchanged you wouldn't have appreciated it. The unprepared you would have destroyed it. But the you that's being built in this fire, the you that's being refined in this pressure, the you that's being shaped in this pain, that version of you is going to be ready. That version of you is going to be strong enough. That version of you is going to be worthy of what's coming. So don't despise this season. Don't waste this waiting. Don't miss the lessons hidden in the struggle. Because this is where champions are made. This is where faith becomes unshakable. This is where ordinary people become extraordinary testimonies of God's faithfulness. You're not going through this for nothing. You're going through this for something. Someone needs to hear your story one day. Someone needs to see that it's possible to go through hell and come out still believing in heaven. Someone needs proof that God is faithful even in the fire. You're going to be that proof. Your life is going to be that testimony. Your story is going to be that encouragement. But first, you have to finish this chapter. You have to endure this season. You have to trust through this trial. And you can. I know you can. Because the same God who protected you from what was behind is protecting you through what you're in and preparing you for what's ahead. The same God who closed that door is about to open this one. The same God who said no then is about to say yes now. But his yes is worth the wait. His yes is worth the pain. His yes is worth every tear you've cried, every prayer that seemed unanswered, every night you couldn't sleep, every day you wanted to give up. His yes is coming. And when it arrives, you won't just be happy. You'll be in awe. You'll be overwhelmed. You'll be grateful not just for the blessing but for the journey that prepared you to receive it. You didn't understand then. But you're starting to understand now. And soon, very soon, you'll understand completely. You'll see that every closed door was God protecting something precious in you. Every delay was God perfecting something powerful for you. Every disappointment was God directing you toward something better than what you were chasing. He was always protecting you. He's still protecting you. He will never stop protecting you. Because that's what love does. Real love. God's love. The kind of love that would rather hurt your feelings than destroy your future. The kind of love that would rather disappoint you temporarily than damage you permanently. So tonight, when you pray, don't just ask Him for what you want. Thank Him for what He's protected you from. Thank Him for the doors He closed. Thank Him for the people who left. Thank Him for the plans that fell apart. Thank Him for loving you enough to say no when yes would have destroyed you. And then ask Him for strength. Strength to keep trusting. Strength to keep believing. Strength to keep hoping. Strength to make it through one more day of not understanding, knowing that the day of understanding is coming. It's coming. Hold on. Keep trusting. Keep believing. Because the same God who has never let you fall is not going to start now. The same God who has always made a way is about to do it again. The same God who has been protecting you all along is about to show you just how perfectly He's been working everything out. You didn't understand then. But you will. And when you do, you'll fall on your knees in gratitude for the God who loved you enough to protect you even when protecting you meant disappointing you. You'll worship Him not just for what He gave you but for what He kept from you. You'll praise Him not just for the doors He opened but for the doors He closed. Because in that moment, you'll finally see the full picture. You'll finally understand the complete story. You'll finally recognize that every single thing, even the painful things, especially the painful things, were all acts of love. All expressions of protection. All evidence of a God who has never taken His eyes off you, never stopped watching over you, never stopped working for your good. That's the God you serve. That's the God who loves you. That's the God who is protecting you right now, in this very moment, from things you'll never know about. And one day, when you're standing in the blessing, when you're living the life He prepared, when you're walking in the purpose He protected, you'll look back at this moment, this exact moment when you were reading these words, and you'll remember. You'll remember that this was the day you decided to keep trusting. This was the moment you chose to believe. This was when you made the decision to hold on just a little bit longer. And you'll be so grateful that you did, because the best is yet to come. The understanding is on its way. The breakthrough is approaching. The blessing is being prepared. And when it all comes together, when you finally see what God has been doing, you won't have any doubt left. You'll know, beyond any question, beyond any shadow of doubt, that He was protecting you all along, that His love never failed, that His plan was perfect, that His timing was right, that everything you went through was leading you here, to this place, to this moment, to this blessing that could only have come from Him. You didn't understand then, but now you do, and that understanding changes everything. It changes how you see your past. It changes how you live your present. It changes how you face your future, because now you know, God is protecting you. He always has been. He always will be. And that knowledge, that certainty, that truth, is enough to carry you through anything. Walk forward in peace. Walk forward in faith. Walk forward in trust. Your protector goes before you. Your defender stands behind you. Your God surrounds you on every side. And nothing, absolutely nothing, can touch you without going through Him first. You are protected. You are loved. You are safe in His hands. Always have been. Always will be. Rest in that tonight. And wake up tomorrow ready to trust Him one more day. Because He's worthy of your trust. And you're about to see just how worth it this journey has been.